Hello. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Outpost Unknown's review of Werewolf. Do you want me to start over?
No, that was the best. Go.
Welcome to our review of Werewolf by Night. I'm Rachel, your co-host, and with me in the dark is Matt.
I am in the dark. I'm in the dark here. Very excited to talk about this, Rachel.
Me too. Me too. I just watched it tonight, and I'm definitely excited to talk about it.
Watched it 3 times.
Okay.
3 times.
Weird flex, but okay.
So yeah, I was very excited about this project. This is directed by Michael Giacchino. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name, but he is the composer for like basically every Marvel, every Disney thing that's out there, whether it's Star Wars or the Marvel movies. I think he even did the Batman DC stuff recently. I mean, he just composes for all the Star Trek films. I think he did. Pretty prolific composer. And it was sort of announced, I think it was at D23 or something, just randomly, hey, guess what? Werewolf by Night, Halloween special, drop in. I'm like, Werewolf by Night? Okay. We saw a cool trailer for it. It was in black and white. It looked neat. And of course, I love the Universal movie monsters. That is my jam. And I was super stoked for this. How excited were you for Marvel's first horror product?
I mean, I saw the trailer and right away I thought it looked really fun. I thought it aesthetically was really interesting. I loved the idea of taking a Marvel story and putting it through that universal horror lens. So yeah, I was pretty on board right away. I know that there were some people online that were not like super excited. We've talked about this on this channel. People watch other things that the D23 was not well received, but this to me was one of the sort of standout moments. And I've been really looking forward to it, especially with the cast. The cast is really great. I love Gael Garcia Bernal. So yeah, I was very into this. And I don't know the comics, so this is all super fresh for me too.
Now, I will admit, I've never read a Werewolf by Night comic in my entire life. That was a run that happened in the 70s. It was before my time, and Werewolf by Night was never a big character sort of in the 80s, 90s, or anything like that. So it was not really on my radar. I had to actually go do some research to sort of see what is this character all about. But I did it after I watched it. So I just kind of wanted to go in completely fresh, and it was really nice to sort of go into a Marvel product without having any history baggage attached to it.
Preconceived, yeah, expectations.
Yeah, it's like,
totally.
okay, they better show this.
Right.
So going into something like, did you have any expectations at all for this? Like, what did you want to see going into it?
I mean, it had a very, like, dark and stormy night look to the aesthetic, and it had a little bit of, like, German expressionism in the trailer. So
Yeah.
I don't know in terms of, like, narratively, I don't know that I had any expectations because, like you, no background at all in this, but I was hoping that I would see a lot of that kind of thing. I was really into the idea of it being an homage, and if it had a decent story and performances and nailed the aesthetics, I was gonna be happy with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So just a quick sort of backstory, I guess, of what this is sort of about. There is a man named Ulysses Bloodstone who is, I don't know if he's running like an organization of monster hunters throughout history, but he has passed away, and he's got this sort of artifact called the Bloodstone that he uses to capture and kill all these various monsters. And I love at the very beginning of the movie, they sort of set up, look, the Avengers exist, but they don't know anything about all this other stuff. This is a whole
Right.
separate thing in the MCU that no one knows about, including all the big superheroes. So he sort of gathers, well, he doesn't, but his wife gathers all these different monster hunters from around the world who are like, I guess, the top at their game or whatever. And they're going to sort of track down and kill a monster that they've sort of put in their sort of, I don't know if it's a garden or whatever, like a labyrinth maze sort of thing.
Like an Escher-esque, like, backyard labyrinth,
Yeah, and so their job is to, whoever can kill the monster gets the Bloodstone and then gets to lead this sort of group or this organization. Gael Garcia Bernal, is that his name?
Yeah.
He shows up and he's got over 100 kills, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, you got over 100 kills!" He's like, "Yeah, man, 100 kills. I'm a cool guy here." And so then they sort of go off into the maze to find and kill the monster. And I'll go ahead and spoil it. Man Thing is the monster. So that now Man Thing is a character that I really love. He was in lots
Okay.
of comic books growing up. So when I kind of knew in the trailer, they show a quick glimpse of Man Thing. So it's not like a spoiler that he's in it or anything like that. But I remember when I saw that in the trailer, I was like, they made him look like Man Thing. I cannot wait to see what they do with this. So that's the basic premise. Elsa Bloodstone is a character in this. She sort of shows up, and it looks like she's estranged from her family. Her stepmother really doesn't like her, and we don't really know why she's there or why she wants a Bloodstone, but she sort of shows up as one of these hunters trying to get it, and then hijinks ensue. So tell me what you thought of Werewolf by Night.
I mean, I really enjoyed this a lot. A lot. I thought they nailed the kind of with the camp factor and the kind of like gags that they pull, especially around Ulysses Bloodstone. All of those things felt very true to the Universal Monster era. Yes, I loved it. That the whole
Yeah, super
animatronic of
cool.
that
Yeah,
was really great. I also really liked the characters quite a bit. Like Jack, I found charming pretty instantly. I kind of liked his almost fish out of water vibe, early in it. And of course, Elsa comes in and is a total badass, and I loved Elsa. The only thing I would say is I wish I had known more about the other hunters because their design was so cool, especially
yeah,
there's a woman who is, like, very tall and mysterious look I thought it was Doug Jones at first. I would have loved to have had more this is a tight 53-minute runtime, which is
yeah,
great, especially for ADD people like me, but I almost wish it was, like, 10 minutes longer so we could have got a few more moments with those other characters. They could have like there are a couple that don't get anything. There's,
yeah,
like, an Asian gentleman and a, black gentleman who, like, barely get any screen time or
yeah.
and I wondered about them, like because the design is really cool.
They're there to
But
die. That's right. They're
the
cannon fodder.
yeah, but, like, you could feel that there was an interesting backstory there. I'm sure people who read the comics recognized them and, like, have a lot of opinions about them. But but overall, I thought this was a ton of fun, and it made me wish for either a series of movies or a series like this where we can, like, explore characters like Jack Russell and Man-Thing that maybe can't carry a film, but are, like, weird outliers that I would like to see stories about them.
Yeah. The big takeaway I had from this was I want to see an entire like we have the overall MCU, and I think most people are kind of getting burned out a little bit on it. At some to a bigger extent than some. It's like I've seen enough of this stuff already, but some people really love it. But they're like, yeah, okay, I don't need to see 50 different projects every single year with these superhero characters. I want to see I don't want this to ever connect to the MCU as a greater
Yeah,
MCU. I want this to
yeah,
be its own little niche corner of the MCU that lives on Disney Plus. And I know they're trying to make a Blade movie, so Blade will eventually come into it and everything like that. So they'll ultimately cross over, but I don't want it. I just want them to do their
mhm.
own thing. I love this. I thought this was perfect. Like there was nothing in this that I thought was bad. Yes, I would have loved to have seen more backstory from all the
Mhm.
different hunters. But I don't think that this for what they were trying to do, I don't think it necessarily needed it. That was more of like, oh, I wish I loved it so much.
Yeah,
I wish I would have known more about those characters. But for what they're
exactly.
doing for this, I thought it was perfect. I mean, they did the even the opening title was like old Universal movie style. Like
Mhm.
even the opening sort of fan for like the Marvel with all that. You see like the werewolf claw marks go through it. It turns all horror, and even the music changes to like that old classic stuff. I thought every character in this was incredible. Like the acting was top notch. Man Thing, like obviously we're gonna set aside Spider Man because that he's in another category, but Man Thing's now my favorite character in Marvel. I think Man Thing
Wow.
was awesome.
Oh,
Man Thing
yeah,
was
no, it was great.
absolutely awesome. And I want to see just like a television show with just Werewolf by Night and Man Thing getting into crazy adventures. Just the two of them because they're like perfect. They're like best
Yeah.
friends or something, and they're like so awesome together. Laura
Mhm.
Donnelly was incredible as Elsa. That shot, there's a whole sequence in there when Werewolf by Night is eventually captured, and it's right when he's going to turn, and he's like, "Oh shit," because he doesn't really realize that they're going to sort of turn him with this
Mhm.
bloodstone, and he's like, trying to protect her in the best way he can. He's like, "Hey, don't break eye contact with me at all times. Just you gotta have no matter what you see, you gotta stare at me." And there's this amazing sort of like dolly in shot like pushing in on her. She's terrified,
Yes.
absolutely terrified, and in the background you see like the silhouette, because it's a big thing. People are always like, werewolves, the transformation is
Right.
makes or breaks it. And they don't really, I mean, they show a little bit of the hands kind of
Mhm.
transforming, but the whole transformation takes place in silhouette, and I thought it was so beautifully done,
Mhm.
especially for that sort of old 30s aesthetic. We're not getting like the Howling and American Werewolf in London and stuff
Right.
like that. And then when
Right.
they finally reveal him, I loved that it was a wolf man. It wasn't one of these
Yeah.
werewolf movies where it's like we got to turn it into just a giant like wolf, rabid wolf,
Right.
creature. It's like you saw the man in there. It was like
Mhm.
the old Universal Wolf Man, Lon Chaney Jr. stuff, and I loved it. I loved
Yeah.
everything about it. Um, I will, and this is a testament, I think, to being able to do something in 50 minutes that adds so much more to the sort of backstories of all these characters. There's so much I wanted to know. Like when Elsa is talking to her stepsister or stepmother at the very beginning, and her stepmother, who's great. I
Yes.
don't know who that actress is, but she was
I mean, the
incredible. She was evil.
camp was amazing.
Oh, so good. So good. And she's like, "Well, why are you even here? You haven't even been trained." And she's like, "Well, I wasn't trained by him." And I'm like, "Who trained her?" Because
Yeah, yeah.
you see her kick all sorts of ass. It's like, who trained her? And then there's a
Mhm.
moment when Jack is sort of like trying to protect her, and he's like sniffing in her hair and stuff so he can try to remember her or whatever. She's like, "Does this
Mhm.
really work?" He's like, "It did once before." Like, what was that? What
Yes.
was that? Like, there's like
Yeah.
little moments throughout that, like Jack and Man Thing, how they've gone to other adventures and he's had to save Man Thing from things like, oh, well, what are those? It's like I
Right?
want to. There was so much in here, little character moments that added so much to all of them. I just loved it. I loved everything. This is easily the best thing on Disney Plus MCU wise, in my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think the part of what makes it so great is it doesn't have to have the 4 quadrant appeal. Like, it's not trapped into needing to make a half a billion dollars in the box office, so it can be weird, it can take risks, it can, like you said, not necessarily connect to anything else, and what that happens is it opens up this, like, space of creative freedom that I think we're losing in some of the, like, blockbuster, Marvel stuff. I still like it, I'll still watch it all, but when you
Yeah.
watch something like this, you're like, "Oh, right, this is what is in this actual canon, if we can extend beyond the edges of what goes into this, like, phase 4, phase 5, phase 50," you know?
Yeah, and I really loved, obviously the set design was incredible. This is another example. I mean, we would just discuss this on our Andor show. So go plug, check out our weekly reviews of Andor. But how much better it looks when there's actual real sets, right? And
Yes,
real
yes.
locations and stuff. And this, like when they walk into Ulysses, I don't know, that grand ballroom or whatever it is, it looks
Mhm.
incredible. All the different monster heads on the wall. They got like Bigfoot up on the wall, his
I
head like on the wall. And I'm
know.
just sitting here, I'm like, this is so like amazing. It's just it's so cool, and it feels real and lived in. And then when they go out into like the gardeny labyrinth area, it's like those are actual real walls and real like shrubs and all that stuff.
Mhm.
It looks so cool. And then they do this cool, because I know a lot of people are like, well, it's black and white. I've talked to people who are like, I'm not going to watch it. It's in black and white, which is insane to me.
That's
It's insane.
crazy.
It's crazy. It looks so good. Like you mentioned, the German expressionism. It's exactly what I thought when watching it. All the shadows and the angles and everything. It was made with such loving care,
Yeah.
that I adored all of it. But I love the very end when Elsa gets the bloodstone, and then
Yeah.
everything turns to color, and you get sort of the over the rainbow
We
from
get a little
was
Wizard of Oz,
yeah.
yeah, mhm.
And I was like, it was like, okay, the black and white, I think you can look at it on one level just aesthetically, right? Those movies from the
Mhm.
30s and 40s Universals were black and white. But I think in the context of the story that they're telling, it matters more, because the monster hunters, they see the world in black and white. all the
Mhm.
monsters are evil. They're just there to be destroyed because even
Mm.
the
Mhm.
stepmom is like, this is mercy. This is mercy for all of you, and Elsa, having encountered Man Thing and encountered Werewolf by Night, kind of realizes, wait a minute, the world is not black and white, and that's what I feel like it kind of comes in. The color comes into play.
I
Uh,
love that.
that's
Yes.
what I thought. Like when I
I
was
think
looking
you're
at it,
right.
and I like, oh, it looks so cool. I loved Elsa. I love her reaction when she sees Man Thing.
Ted, you have a lovely name.
Yeah.
Ted,
Hi,
Ted,
Ted.
hi
Great
Ted.
name.
Great name, and I just love like the expression on his. And I think it looked like the Man Thing in color at the very end was practical. I mean, maybe it wasn't, but it looked practical to
It
me.
looked incredible. It looked really
Yeah,
good, and I think it's a testament to Gael Garcia Bernal's talent, like, his gift for acting, because those moments between them, he's, like, essentially talking to a CGI character, but you feel the camaraderie, you feel the
yeah,
chemistry there. So it makes you feel like, yeah, he's really there. There's some practical effect there. It's really cool, and the
yeah,
design is really cool. I don't know the source material, but I love, like, all the, like, mushrooms on him.
yeah.
He was just a really cool monster.
Yeah, and Man Thing came out like 2 months before Swamp Thing. So Man Thing, it's kind of one of those like Namor Aquaman things where
Ooh.
Namor came before Aquaman and Man Thing came before Swamp Thing. The cool thing about Man Thing, and I don't know if they're going to go into this, I hope they don't. I really hope they don't. One of Man Thing's sort of powers is he's multiversal. So that's actually how he was created. So basically, long story short, he ended up in a swamp. This brilliant scientist, he was dying, and he ended up at the nexus of all realities, which is in this swamp, and it sort of fused all this stuff, and he can teleport around and do all kinds of crazy stuff, which is how I think he got a lot of those things like the phonograph and all that stuff at the end. I don't think he walked out with them. I think he
Mm.
teleported all that stuff out. But I don't want them to go like use the multiverse with this at all. But
Yeah.
his whole power is, if you're scared of him and he touches you, he secretes an acid that will burn you alive. So all of the
Okay.
hunters, when he was like putting his hands on their head, they were terrified when they saw him. That's how they died. Like the cool thing about Man Thing is, if you're not scared of him at all, he can't really hurt. I mean, he can't. I mean, he could just punch you in the face probably and kill you,
Mhm.
but he can't like burn you with corrosive acid.
Really?
Yeah, that's why Jack was like, "Hey, just treat him like you like a friend, right?" And so she wasn't like super terrified of him, and he kind of let her go. But yeah, I loved everything about this. There's literally nothing that I hated. To me, this is an A plus. They knocked it
Mhm.
out of the park. I want to see more of this. I want to see more of this
Mhm.
world. I want to bring it. Yeah, eventually bring in the Midnight Suns. Bring in Ghost Rider and bring in like all of these different characters, and you can have them team up. I just don't want them to have anything to do with the overall. I don't want them to meet up with Thor, or anything like
Mhm.
that, which they
It's
will
interest
eventually. But
well, maybe not, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that so much of this conversation parallels to things we're talking about Antor, where, like, this feels like a much more adult, even though it's kind of campy, it feels much more adult in
it's
terms
very
of, like,
violent.
the violence. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also really wanting these stories to be like, in the past, we always wanted to make those sort of connections and feel like that universe come together, and we've reached a point where it is beneficial to the story to be separate. I don't know. It's an interesting parallel, but the violence, we should talk about that because that feels very different than what we've seen so far in
Yeah,
Marvel.
I do want to touch on one thing you said right there. I think it's important because when the MCU first started, we really wanted those connections, right? They're
Oh,
all doing
yeah.
these individual sort of
Nick
stories, but we
Fury
want.
shows up and we're like, "Oh
Yeah,
my god!"
the problem that Marvel has now is they feel like everything must be connected when you
Mhm,
need to give people room to breathe, right? We want to see characters go off and do their own little thing without having to have every other Marvel character involved somehow. And I think what's nice about this and what they have the opportunity to do would be to just build a bunch of these sort of I don't know, horror type characters. Like Moon Knight was very similar, right? Moon Knight wasn't connected to the rest of the MCU, but Moon
Yeah.
Knight can definitely connect with this world because Moon Knight first appeared in Werewolf by Night's comic books. He was a Werewolf
Mhm.
by Night villain. So
Oh.
I can see Moon Knight clashing with Werewolf by Night, and that would make sense in comic books, but I don't need them to involve Thor and all these other people.
Mhm.
But yeah, to your point with the violence, it's pretty violent. I mean, for a Marvel movie, obviously we are
Yeah.
jaded horror
Yeah.
fans, but I mean, axes go in the head, arms are lopped off. There's blood. Obviously it's in black and white, but still there's blood like dripping out of severed arms.
Prolonged scene of, like, an arrow through somebody's mouth?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a violent thing, and I appreciate it. I was like, okay, this is something I can get behind. This is something a little bit different, and I loved it. And you can
Mhm.
make the argument, all those old '30s movies didn't have this kind of violence in it, and they didn't, and that's fine. This did its own thing, but it kept all the homages and the loving nods to what came before and still put its
Yeah.
own little spin on it and sort of modernized it and everything like that. So, yeah, it's definitely the most violent Marvel property, and I wonder if they'll continue with it. Like when they bring in Blade, like how violent will Blade be? Right?
I mean,
Is
it
it going to be
should
like
be.
is it going to be like the things in the '90s? Um, Fun fact about Werewolf by Night, by the way, his ancestor, who originally got lycanthropy, was actually bitten by Dracula's personal werewolf. That's how the whole chain started.
What?
Yeah, and so there's actually rumors that Dracula is going to be like the big main villain when they create all these sort of supernatural side of things. That Dracula
Really?
will be the villain because Dracula is a character in Marvel Comics.
Really?
Moon Knight interacts with them. Blade interacts with them. Everybody interacts with Dracula in the comic books.
Is
So
this how they're finally gonna get that dark universe off the ground at Universal?
yeah, like just sticking it to Universal. But yeah, I mean, I loved it. I don't know what else to say. I like I said, I've watched it 3 times. I'll probably watch it again.
Mhm.
I just loved everything about this, even the camera work, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he's a first time director, I think. I mean, I don't know if he's done anything else like this, but I mean, just the camera movements through the hedge maze sort of areas
Mhm.
and things of that nature, and like the slow pans up on the eyes as she's being attacked by
Yes.
Werewolf by Night. And there's an amazing scene that when Jack escapes, it's sort of panning around to everybody in the room, this sort of wide shot, and then you just
Yeah.
see like him up perched on some monster, and you just see his eyes like glow, and then he jumps down. It's like
Yeah.
this was so cool. I mean, it was just so cool. I can't imagine
Yeah.
anybody watching this and saying, "Oh, this sucks. I didn't like it." It's impossible. This is just beautiful. It's
Do you
beautiful.
think it's too niche? I mean, like, obviously it's Marvel, but is this because of all the things that we love it and think makes it really special, it makes it too niche to, like, find an audience?
Oh, I think it'll find an audience because kids will love this.
I hope
Kids,
so.
because here's the thing, like, we were all kids. We all loved watching these monster movies and stuff. Kids love
That's
werewolves
true.
just like they love dinosaurs and things of that nature. So
Yeah.
Marvel has an opportunity to, you know, go after that like new generation of people coming up. Give them something new.
Mhm.
You have I mean, who's not going to love Man Thing after seeing this? I
I
want a
know.
Man Thing like plushy doll in my bedroom. I want all the Man Thing things. So give me all the Man
Mhm.
Things, Disney, and I will purchase them.
Yeah,
And
we
there's
need a
just
Man-Thing hot toy. That would be amazing.
oh yeah, oh my god, yeah,
Can
yeah.
you
So
imagine? Oh, it'd be so rad.
um, so yeah, I mean, there's I think I definitely think kids would like this. So
Mhm.
I'm actually gonna see my sister and all my nephews. So I'm gonna hope to watch this with them, just to sort of gauge their reaction. But I can't imagine they're not going to love seeing a werewolf running around, jumping around, cutting people up, and biting
Yeah.
ears off, and and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So and Elsa,
I think that'd be
I'd
fun.
love Elsa to have her own series because I want to see what Elsa Bloodstone is up to,
I
and that.
mean, like, I the minute she walked on the screen, I was like, "Well, I'm obsessed with you."
She's
I need to
so
know
good.
everything about you. She's fantastic, and their
She's so good.
interaction is so fan and I feel like even though they haven't said they're gonna do more, I feel like they left it open. With their dynamic, with Jack and Man-Thing's dynamic, it feels open-ended enough that it could be like, "Okay, we're done," or "Werewolf by Night 2."
I feel like just the critical reception to this alone, I mean, they'd be dumb not to continue with these characters, honestly. I mean, it'd be really, really stupid to not capitalize on this and do more with it because they're setting the stage, right? Everything's there, and I think maybe I mean, obviously, I'm not Bob Chapek or Kevin Feige or Disney. Maybe they're waiting to see what the numbers are, the streaming numbers. Do people really
Mm.
like this? I mean, I'll just put it on stream repeatedly for like the next
Do
3
your
days.
part.
If
Democracy.
yeah. But yeah, I'm stoked to see where this goes. I love all the tantalizing little clues they put out there of like who these
Mhm.
people were before, and also and I have no insider knowledge. I didn't read this anywhere. I don't know, but there's a moment when Jack realizes after Elsa tells him, "Hey, she's going to turn you at the Bloodstone," because he almost plays this really sort of like, oh, he's not quite goofy, but he's just kind of like, "Hey, I'm just kind of a nice guy," sort of.
Lovable loser kind of
Yeah.
thing. Mhm.
Um, and then he kind of looks around at the room, and they specifically show all of the monster heads that are on the wall. And I'm
Mhm.
actually wondering if the 100 kills are actually if that's true. And he's
Mm.
realizing, oh shit, I killed all of these things because when I was a werewolf, I killed them all. Because early on, that hunter
Oh.
goes, are any of these on the wall yours? And he does recognize one of the guys. He's like, "Oh, I didn't kill that guy, but I remember encountering him a number of times." So I'm wondering if there is a situation in which Jack himself, when he turns into a werewolf, he goes out and kills bad monsters, right?
Mhm.
I don't
He
know.
does say it's not him, it's someone else, so he could
Yeah,
be saying like, "I no, these are not mine."
yeah. But
Okay.
then, as he's turning or getting ready to turn, he's sort of
Yeah.
realizing, "Oh shit, I did kill that thing and that thing." And then he tells the people, "Is like,
Mhm.
hey man, I can't be held accountable for what happens here. Please
Yeah.
let me go." So I don't know. There's all kinds of cool stuff with this, and I'm like, I
Yeah.
just want to see more of it, just
Yeah.
more of it. So
I mean, and how often do you come away from one of these things being like, "I wish it was more. I
I
wish it was
know. I know, and it feels so
more."
good, like, this coming off of, like, Andor, I feel so heartened now because
Right?
I was so sort of, like, kind
Oh,
of
is it
bummed
done? Are we done with this?
bummed
Yeah.
by Star Wars, bummed by a lot of the Marvel stuff coming out, and then it's like, "Man, Andor's amazing, this was amazing, and I just want more of it." Kevin Feige Kevin Feige, we know you watch, come on now, just give us more A
Can
Werewolf
you
by Night and
imagine?
Man-Thing. A Werewolf by Night and Man-Thing, like, buddy traveling the country sort of thing. I don't know. Give me that show. Give me
Yeah,
that show.
we'll take it, we'll watch it.
So, that's all I got, A+. What would you grade this if you had to give it a letter grade?
I would give it an A for sure. Yeah, this is one of my favorite things I've seen so far in spooky season. Like, it was just, like, pure joy.
Yeah.
Just pure serotonin. Spooky
Loved it.
serotonin.
Loved it. Loved it.
Me
Loved
too.
it.
Alright. Is that it?
That's it. That's all I got. Go watch it, everyone. Support.
Oh, listen, the technology is not perfect, but
It's
my
okay.
heart is in
It's okay.
it.
I don't blame you.